I first met Claire during my final year at university. She was beautiful in the kind of way that made people stop mid-sentence. Tall, confident, and always surrounded by guys, she had that magnetic charm everyone noticed. I, on the other hand, was quieter, more reserved, watching from the edges of the crowd. I had accepted my sexuality years ago, but being openly lesbian wasn't something I shouted from rooftops. I simply lived my truth, quietly but firmly. Claire was the kind of girl who always had a boyfriend, at least that's what she let people believe. She laughed loudly at their jokes, held their hands at parties, and acted every bit the straight girl she claimed to be. But there was something in her eyes whenever they wandered across the room and landed on me. Something she tried to hide. I'd catch her looking at me longer than she should, biting her lip when I smiled, or blushing when I leaned in too close. At first, I brushed it off as imagination. After all, she'd made it clear, loudly, even, that she was straight. She once even joked about how girls could never turn her on while her friends laughed along. But the way her gaze lingered on me that night told me otherwise. The lie was obvious, but I didn't push. Until the night of Jenna's birthday party. The music pulsed through the house, lights flashing over bodies pressed too close together on the makeshift dance floor. I wasn't much of a party girl, but I went for Jenna's sake. Claire was there, of course, looking stunning in a silky red dress that clung to her curves. She found me in the kitchen, away from the noise, sipping on a drink. Hiding again, she teased, leaning against the counter so close our arms brushed. Her perfume wrapped around me, intoxicating. I tried to laugh it off. Someone has to keep the walls company. She smirked, eyes locking with mine. You're always so mysterious, you know that? Her gaze dipped to my lips for the briefest second before darting away. That was the moment I knew, without a doubt, that Claire was lying. She wasn't straight. Not even close. But if she wasn't ready to admit it, I wasn't going to force her. Still, something about that look she gave me set the night in motion. Because when the party ended, and most people stumbled out drunk or collapsed on couches, Claire pulled me aside. Her voice trembled, but her eyes burned with something fierce. "Can I tell you a secret?" she whispered. And in that breathless moment, I knew her whole world was about to unravel. The hallway outside Jenna's apartment was dim, the music muffled by closed doors. Claire tugged me by the wrist, her touch sending a jolt through me. She stopped near the stairwell, where it was quiet, where no one could see. Her face was flushed, whether from the alcohol or nerves, I couldn't tell. "I'm not who they think I am," she began, her voice low, shaky. Her fingers still circled my wrist, almost like she needed to anchor herself to me. "I'm not even who I pretend to be." I swallowed hard, my heart hammering. This was the moment, the crack in her perfectly built facade. "Then who are you, Claire?" I asked gently, searching her eyes. For a long second, she said nothing. Her chest rose and fell quickly, her lips parting as though she wanted to confess but didn't know how. Then she looked at me the way she had so many times before, like I was the only person in the room. "I've lied," she whispered. About being straight. About what I feel." The words hung between us, heavy and dangerous, but also liberating. Her grip tightened, as though she was terrified I'd pull away. Instead, I took a step closer. "Claire, you don't have to." Before I could finish, she cut me off with a soft, trembling laugh. "God, I've wanted to tell you for months. Every time you looked at me, I thought you could see right through me. And I hated myself for pretending. But it's easier, you know? To play the part everyone expects." I knew that feeling all too well, the suffocating weight of pretending to be someone else, of forcing yourself into a mold just so you wouldn't stand out. My chest ached for her. "You don't owe anyone a performance," I said quietly. "Not me, not them." Her eyes flickered, shimmering in the faint light. Then she leaned in, so close her breath brushed my cheek. My pulse thundered as her lips hovered just inches away from mine. "Then tell me this," she murmured. "If I kissed you right now, would you stop me?" Time seemed to freeze. Every nerve in my body screamed for her touch, every instinct begged me to close the distance. But I hesitated, caught between desire and the fear of ruining her fragile confession. Slowly, I whispered, "Try me." And that was all the permission she needed. Her lips met mine in a desperate, shaky kiss that tasted of wine and forbidden longing. It wasn't polished or perfect, it was raw, hungry, trembling with months of repressed truth. My hand found the curve of her waist, pulling her closer as her body melted into mine. When we finally pulled apart, breathless and wide-eyed, she pressed her forehead to mine. "I'm terrified," she admitted, her voice breaking. "So am I confessed. But I've never wanted something more." And in that moment, the lie she had lived shattered completely, leaving only the truth, fragile, beautiful, and burning between us. The days after the party felt like stepping into a dream I wasn't supposed to touch. Claire and I didn't speak about the kiss, not directly. But something had shifted, undeniably. Every glance lingered too long, every brush of skin felt electric. She was no longer the untouchable straight girl I thought I could never have, she was a woman with a secret, and that secret tied her to me. In public, she was the same old Claire, laughing loudly at the guys who tried to flirt with her, walking arm in arm with friends, pretending everything was normal. But when our eyes met across the campus courtyard, there was a spark. A silent language only we understood. It was torture, and it was addictive. One afternoon, we found ourselves alone in the library. She slid into the seat across from me, her fingers drumming nervously against the table. I tried to focus on my textbook, but the intensity of her gaze made the words blur. "You've been avoiding me," she whispered, leaning closer. I raised an eyebrow. "You've been surrounded by people. Hard to find time to talk." Her lips curved into a smirk, but her eyes gave her away, restless, needy. "Or maybe you're scared." "Of what?" I challenged, though my pulse quickened. Her voice dropped lower, meant only for me. "Of how much you wanted that kiss." The air between us thickened. My mouth went dry as I searched her face, trying to read whether she was teasing me or daring me. But then her hand brushed mine under the table, quick, fleeting, but deliberate. Heat shot through me. "Claire," I warned softly, though even I wasn't sure what I was warning against. She leaned in, so close I could feel her breath against my ear. "Meet me tonight. After dark. Don't ask where, just trust me." Her words sent a thrill rushing down my spine. Before I could respond, she stood, gave me one last lingering look, and walked away. That evening, I couldn't concentrate on anything. My mind spun with possibilities, with the memory of her lips on mine. When my phone finally buzzed with a location, a quiet park near the edge of campus, I didn't hesitate. She was already there, sitting on a swing under the pale glow of the moonlight. Her dress clung to her like liquid shadows, her hair falling around her face. She looked up when I approached, her smile soft but nervous. "You came," she said. "How could I not?" I replied, my voice low. Silence stretched between us, thick with unspoken words. Finally, she stood, closing the distance until we were chest to chest. "This feels like playing with fire," she whispered. "Then let it burn," I answered, pulling her against me. Her lips crashed into mine, harder this time, hungry, reckless. Her hands tangled in my hair as mine roamed the curve of her back, pressing her closer until there was no space left between us. For the first time, she didn't hold back. And neither did I. After that night in the park, everything changed. Claire and I were no longer orbiting each other, we were colliding, again and again, in stolen moments that left us breathless. It started with late-night walks, where her hand would brush mine before daring to intertwine our fingers. Then came study sessions that turned into whispered confessions, her body pressed against mine behind the tall shelves of the library. Every kiss was a risk, but every kiss made it harder to stop. She was fire and hesitation tangled together. Sometimes she pulled me close with a desperation that made my knees weak, and other times she pulled away as if terrified of her own desire. I learned to read her silences, to recognize the battle waging inside her, the part that craved me, and the part still afraid of what it meant. One night, she showed up at my apartment unannounced. Her hair was damp from the rain, her mascara smudged from crying. I barely had time to ask what was wrong before she kissed me like she was drowning and I was the only thing keeping her afloat. "I can't stop thinking about you," she whispered against my lips. "I don't want to pretend anymore." I cupped her face in my hands, forcing her to meet my gaze. "Then don't. With me, you don't have to." Something in her broke open then. She let me guide her inside, shedding her wet jacket, her trembling hands clutching at me like I was the only thing keeping her steady. The way she kissed me that night was different, less hesitant, more certain. Our lips moved together like we'd been waiting our whole lives for this moment. When her hand slipped under my shirt, hesitant but eager, I caught my breath. "Are you sure?" I asked, giving her one last chance to step back. Her answer came in the form of a nod, her eyes blazing with need. "I've never been more sure." What followed was slow, tender, and electric. Every touch was a discovery, every sigh a confession. Her fingers traced my skin like she was memorizing it, while I whispered reassurances into the curve of her neck. For hours, the world outside ceased to exist, it was just us, tangled in sheets and secrets, wrapped in the kind of intimacy neither of us could deny anymore. Afterward, she lay beside me, her head on my chest, our breaths sinking in the quiet. Her hand rested over my heart as if she wanted to keep it for herself. "I don't know how to face everyone after this," she admitted softly. "They all think I'm someone I'm not." I kissed the top of her head. "Then stop living for them. Live for you. Live for this." Her arms tightened around me, and though fear still lingered in her voice, I knew one thing for certain: Claire's lie had finally unraveled, and what we had was no longer something she could bury. It was real. And it was just the beginning. For weeks, our secret burned brightly in the dark. We lived in stolen hours, our connection hidden behind locked doors and quiet corners. Every time Claire slipped into my apartment after midnight or brushed against me in a crowded hallway, my heart raced with the thrill of it all. But secrets have a way of demanding attention, and ours was no different. It started with whispers. People noticed the way Claire drifted from her usual crowd, how she lingered around me more than anyone else. Her so-called straight girl reputation didn't quite match the soft smiles she reserved only for me. Rumors spread quickly on campus, fed by curious eyes and careless words. "Are you too, you know?" Jenna asked me one afternoon, her tone playful but sharp with curiosity. I forced a laugh, shaking my head. "Just friends." But I knew the lie wouldn't hold forever. Claire, however, seemed torn between fear and recklessness. Some days, she avoided me entirely, her walls slamming back up as if nothing had ever happened. Other days, she couldn't keep her hands off me, pressing me against the stacks in the library, slipping kisses into the shadows of empty classrooms, pulling me into bathrooms during parties just for a taste of my lips. The contradiction was maddening, intoxicating. She was terrified of being caught, yet addicted to the danger of it. One night, after another stolen kiss in the back of the lecture hall, I finally confronted her. "You can't keep running hot and cold like this," I said, grabbing her hand before she could pull away. "I need to know, are you in this with me, or are you still hiding?" Her eyes softened, guilt flashing through them. "I'm scared," she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "If people find out, everything changes. My friends, my family, they'll look at me differently." I squeezed her hand. "They might. But you'll finally be free. And you won't be alone." Tears welled in her eyes, and she leaned into me, resting her forehead against mine. "God, I wish I was as brave as you." "You're braver than you think," I whispered. Later that week, she proved it. We were at another party, music pulsing, bodies moving around us. Claire had been quiet all night, her hand brushing mine in small, secret touches. But then, out of nowhere, she turned to me in the crowded kitchen, eyes blazing with a decision she'd finally made. Before I could ask what was wrong, she kissed me. Right there. In front of everyone. Gasps rippled around us, followed by stunned silence. I froze, my heart thundering, but Claire didn't waver. Her lips pressed firmly against mine, her hands gripping me like she'd never let go. When she finally pulled back, her chest heaving, she whispered, "No more hiding." And just like that, the lie she had lived so long was shattered, not just between us, but in front of the world. The kiss spread across campus like wildfire. By morning, it seemed like everyone knew. Some people stared openly when we walked by, their whispers sharp enough to cut. Others smiled knowingly, their expressions soft with quiet approval. But not everyone was kind. Claire felt it the hardest. Her so-called friends cornered her in the cafeteria the next day. I watched from across the room as they leaned in, voices raised in disbelief. "Tell me that was a joke," one of them demanded. "You were drunk, right? That wasn't real." Claire's face flushed crimson, her tray trembling in her hands. For a terrifying second, I thought she would deny it, that she'd laugh it off and pretend our kiss was just another party mistake. But then her eyes found mine across the crowded room. And she didn't look away. "It was real," she said softly but firmly. "I'm done lying." The table fell into stunned silence. Some of her friends exchanged awkward glances, while others pushed back their chairs and walked away. Claire's shoulders sagged, but she didn't flinch. She carried her tray to my table, slid in beside me, and whispered, "If I'm going down, I'm not going down alone." I smiled, pride swelling in my chest. "You're not going down at all. You're standing up." Still, the fallout wasn't easy. Her phone buzzed nonstop with messages, some cruel, some confused, some begging her to explain. At night, she curled into me, her body trembling with the weight of it all. "My mom keeps calling," she whispered one evening, her voice breaking. "I don't know what to say to her." I stroked her hair gently, holding her close. "Say the truth. It's scary, but it's the only thing that will set you free." She sighed, burying her face in my neck. "You make it sound so simple." "It's not simple," I admitted. "But it's worth it." Despite the storm swirling around us, our connection only deepened. We became each other's refuge. Every kiss, every touch, every whispered confession in the dark felt more powerful now that it wasn't hidden in shadows. The risk was still there, but the shame was gone. One night, lying tangled in my sheets, Claire traced circles on my skin with her fingertips. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked softly. "Being out? Living openly?" I thought for a moment. Sometimes it's hard. But regret? No. Because every time I get to love without hiding, it feels like breathing after holding it in too long. She smiled faintly, her eyes glistening. "I want that. I want to breathe." And in that moment, I knew, Claire wasn't just dipping her toes into truth anymore. She was ready to dive in, no matter how terrifying the plunge. Our love had been born in secrecy, but now, it was becoming something braver, something undeniable. And we weren't turning back. The day Claire decided to tell her family, I saw a different kind of fear in her eyes. Not the fear of whispers on campus or the loss of shallow friendships, but the raw, bone-deep fear of losing the people who had shaped her whole life. She sat on my couch, her phone clutched tightly in her hand. Her leg bounced nervously, her lips pressed into a thin line. "What if they hate me?" she whispered. I reached for her hand, threading my fingers through hers. "They might not understand right away. But hating you? That's not love. And they do love you, Claire. I can see it in the way you talk about them." Her eyes filled with tears. "What if I disappoint them?" "You can't disappoint someone by being yourself," I said softly. "You can only disappoint them by pretending to be someone else forever." She exhaled shakily and finally pressed the call button. I sat beside her in silence, squeezing her hand while she spoke. "Mom? I need to tell you something." There was a long pause on the other end. Claire's knuckles whitened as she gripped the phone tighter. "I'm not who you think I am. I'm not straight." Another pause, heavier this time. I could faintly hear her mother's voice, confused, quiet, asking questions. Claire's tears spilled freely, but her voice didn't break. Yes, I'm sure. I've been lying for a long time. But I can't anymore. I'm with someone. A girl. And I love her. The word love hit me like a rush of air, filling my lungs with warmth. The conversation stretched on, full of tension and hesitation. Her mother didn't scream, didn't hang up, but she didn't immediately embrace it either. The call ended with a shaky, "We'll talk when you come home." When she hung up, Claire collapsed into my arms, sobbing. I held her tightly, kissing the top of her head, whispering, "You were brave. You were so brave." Later that weekend, she went home to face them in person. I waited for hours, checking my phone every 5 minutes, my stomach twisting. Finally, her message came, "They don't get it." Not yet. But they didn't throw me out. They said they need time. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. A beginning. When she returned, she fell into my arms with a tired smile. They didn't say they were okay with it, but they didn't say they hated me either. I think that's a start. It is, I whispered, cupping her face. The rest will come. She kissed me then, long and deep, as if grounding herself in the truth she had finally spoken. For the first time, I saw not just the scared girl who had lied about being straight, but the woman who was learning how to stand tall in her truth. And I loved her more than ever. By the time spring arrived, it felt like we were living entirely new lives. The secret nights, the trembling whispers, the stolen kisses in the dark, they had transformed into something steadier, something real. Claire no longer flinched when she reached for my hand in public. She no longer hid her smile when she leaned in to kiss me, even when people stared. At first, the stares stung. The whispers trailed after us like shadows. But slowly, we stopped caring. Because every time Claire laced her fingers through mine, I saw the relief in her eyes. She was no longer pretending. She was free. One evening, we sat together in the campus courtyard, the setting sun painting the sky in soft pinks and golds. Students moved past us in waves, some glancing, some whispering, some ignoring us completely. Claire rested her head on my shoulder, her body relaxed in a way it hadn't been months ago. I used to think my whole life was going to be one big performance, she admitted softly. Smiling at boys I didn't like, dating people who didn't matter, saying all the right things so no one suspected the truth. I thought that was easier. And now? I asked, brushing a strand of hair from her face. She smiled up at me, her eyes glimmering. Now I realize nothing feels easier than this. Just being with you. The weight of her words settled warmly in my chest. I tilted her chin up and kissed her, slow and gentle, not caring about who saw. The world could watch, we weren't hiding anymore. Later that night, as we lay tangled in my bed, Claire whispered something that made my breath catch. I lied about being straight for so long I almost believed it myself. But the truth? The truth is, I've never felt more alive than I do when I'm with you. You're not just my secret. You're my home. My heart swelled, tears prickling my eyes. I kissed her deeply, pouring every ounce of love I had into that moment. And you're mine, I whispered back. From then on, the fear faded. There were still challenges, still people who didn't understand, still moments of uncertainty. But none of it mattered, because Claire had chosen the truth, and she had chosen me. Months later, at graduation, we stood side by side in our gowns, our fingers intertwined as we looked out at the crowd. She leaned in and kissed me in front of everyone, parents, professors, classmates. The applause that followed was mixed, some genuine, some uncomfortable, but it didn't matter. Because in that kiss, I felt the full circle of our story, the lie she had once told, the secret we had guarded, the truth we had fought for. And as she smiled at me with tears in her eyes, I knew we weren't just surviving. We were living, fearless, unapologetic, and in love. No more lies. Only us.